Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Sanders, and this is Watch Art Sci, the art and science of watch collection. Today, what I want to talk about are the kinds of watches that advanced watch collectors have. And to a great extent, this is an oversimplification, but at the same time, it points to a number of things that will sort of look over the horizon, so to speak. And at the end of this, I'm going to sort of reflect back on this. So let's get started. One of the first things you'll find that most advanced watch collectors want is a tourbillon. And a tourbillon was developed so that, and it was developed in pocket watches so that in terms of your movement, the watch timing wouldn't be thrown off. And apparently it works with pocket watches, but it's a little problematic with wristwatches because of the different directions that your wristwatch may go. It's rather than just going like this, it's this, a lot of different directions. So, but that's something that I'm not going to debate. But the other part of it is tourbillons are very cool, very difficult to make, and they're very expensive. So here I got three of them here. One is for the Audemars Piguet. It's one of their newer ones, a Code 1159 Flying Tourbillon, 129,000 Swiss francs. By the way, I'm going to have Swiss francs, dollars, and euro. So anyway, that's just because I didn't want to have something that wasn't accurate. Okay, the next one is another tourbillon. This one is by Longa und Söhne. This is the 1815 tourbillon, 198,000 euro. So that's north of $200,000. That's a lot. Finally is a Breguet Classic Tourbillon Extra Plot Squelette, 5395, 225,200. The extra plot means extra thin, and probably one of the reasons that the Breguet is even higher than the other two is because of the extra thinness of it. It's difficult enough to get a tourbillon in a watch. To get it in a thin one is even more so. Okay, the next kind of thing that your more advanced collector may look at, we talked about when we looked at intermediate watch collectors, we talked about the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie having some watch that won something. And the grand prize, Aiguille d'Or, at the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève is the best watch that year. And there's only, let's see, I think started in 2001, it's 2020 now. And so at the end of the year, there'll be 20 of these. So there are not a lot of them, and they don't make a lot of them. The first one is from 2018. It's Beauvais 1822, Recital 22, Grand Recital. This watch is really an incredible watch. It has hour sections, day, date, and so forth, the month, year, moon phase, power reserve, retrograde minutes, tourbillon, perpetual calendar, tellurium, query, double face, retrograde perpetual calendar. It's like a one watch collection. They only 60 pieces were made. That's not unusual for the Aiguille d'Or. I think Tag Heuer had one, and they made one of them. So now this one is 468,500 Swiss francs, $500,000 almost. The next one is from 2015. Now this one is more of what I would call a pure tourbillon. The major element of this, beyond the hours, minutes, and seconds, is the tourbillon itself. And it has a power reserve indicator as well. This is by Grubel Force. They have done a lot of really great watches like this. This one's limited to 22 pieces at 290,000 Swiss francs. And you can see from both of these are things that even your well-heeled collector, it's going to sort of put a huge dent in their budget. But this would be for extremely advanced watch collection. Okay, now this next one are resonance watches. And resonance is a phenomena where you have, well, it started with two pendulums and each one affecting the other. And John Vier, way back when, had found that using them together, you can have a certain type of avoidance of resonance. Actually, resonance out in the world can throw a watch off. And so one of the ideas is that if you had your own resonance within the watch, it would bounce off any external resonance. Lots of interesting stuff about it. Now, the one on the far left is by Armin Strom. It's called the Mere Force Resonance, 49,000 Swiss francs. That's expensive, but believe me, compared to the other ones, it's a pretty good deal. The one next to it is FP Journe Chronometre Resonance. Now, this is their newest one. The first one came out, I think, is in 2001, maybe 2000, one of the two. The one I have is from 2002. And it's a pretty low number on that. Now, what FP Journe did for his newest one, it came out in 2020, as a matter of fact. This has a combination of the chronometre resonance, so it has the resonance within the movement, and at the same time he put in the Remontoir Égalité, which is, I mean, like, those are two of the most incredible mechanical elements that you can put into a watch. They're both very, very difficult to get right. This one is 101,400 Swiss francs. So they're not cheap. The final one is by Beat Hollemans. This is called the H2 flying resonance, and you can see it. You can see the resonance working right on the dial. And this one is 276,000 Swiss francs. Again, this is for advanced collection, and it gets into advanced money as well. Some of these you can find on the used market, the pre-owned market. And people who buy them purely for the movement, for the resonance in them as a feature. This next one now is one that I had a video on recently. It's called the Remontoir d'Égalité. Remontoir d'Égalité is something to help have constant force. As the mainspring unwinds, it loses its force, just like you wind up a propeller on an airplane. As the rubber band unwinds, it loses its strength. Same thing with a mainspring in a watch. And so what happens with a Remontoir d'Égalité is that they have another little gear that winds and unwinds. And what the mainspring does, it keeps winding the remontoir. Remontoir is French for wind. Now, again, this is something that is very difficult to get done right. There are more than three, but these are three examples. First of all is the Andres Stella. This one is called the Transaxial Tourbillon, and it's 182,500 Swiss francs. Now, this next one is the Langenhain Conrad, constant force remontoir, and deadbeat seconds. The interesting thing about this was that they put the remontoir right on the escapement, and this was considered to be a fairly interesting move, and probably one that was a good one. Now, the problem with this is that this was developed by Marco Lang, and he left the company that was the Lang of Lang and Hein. Hein was with him a very short period of time, like the first year, and then he left. And so it's really been all Marco Lang developed these, and then in 2018, at the end of 2018, he also left. It was some kind of business thing, and so anyway, but he'll be back. Marco Lang is, I think, October 2020. He's promised to come back under the watch company called Marco Lang. Well, anyway, he developed this constant force Remontoir in deadbeat seconds. This is really something. Now, the price on this wasn't the price directly from Lang and Heim. I was at one time I thought it had been like around 70,000, and so I went out looking for one that was new, and this was the price I found, 39,231. And I'll tell you, if I had 40,000 bucks to spare, I'd grab this one in a second. The final one, the FP Journe Chronomet Optimum. Now, the one that we just looked at, the Resonance, also has a Remontoir Egalite. This watch, the FP Journe Chronomet Optimum, had been one that I wanted for years and years, but it was just too expensive for me. And then I discovered the Conrad, and I really like it too. So there are two of them that I like a lot. This one was 87,000. And it's, again, this is FP Journe. I think this was probably the first modern Remontoir d'Egalite. I could be wrong about that, but it was, I don't know of any others that were made before this one in the modern era. It was, I'm sure it was done by Breguet or someone else at another time. But this is another kind of what we're looking at, and what advanced collectors want is something that is uniquely mechanical element for the watch. Unfortunately, like I said, they often are very expensive. Okay, now this next group are the minute repeaters. And minute repeaters, I never quite understood why they are so expensive, but they are. And one of the reasons that I haven't been as interested in them, probably as they deserve to be, is that I have a hearing loss, and so I can't hear the minute repeater. I got a little alarm, a watch alarm. I can't hear the thing at all. Well, what minute repeaters do is that they play music of some sort. The one on the far left is Vacheron Content 10 Patrimony Minute Repeater Ultra Thin. Again, the ultra thins are often pretty hefty prices because it's more difficult. This one is 339,000 bucks, which is more expensive than a lot of things. But and again, you can see if you look at the dial, there's nothing going on there, but it's the sound that you get the watch for. Now, the one next to it is called the Ulysse Nardin Stranger. And the Stranger is called the Stranger because it plays Frank Sinatra's old song, Strangers in the Night. And if you look at the top, right around just below 12 o'clock, you can see all of those little things that look like little burrs or something. Well, those are the things that are pinged to play Stranger in the Night. And it's a very interesting watch. Instead of playing something classical that you'd find on a music box, this one plays something of more of the more modern era, 112,000 bucks. Now, finally, here's another fairly thin watch. This is the Bulgari Octo Finissimo Minute Repeater Carbon. And this watch is part of the Octo line of watches from Bulgari. And it looks just like a regular plain watch, but it's not. It plays a tune. And again, that's what the minute repeaters do. $160,000. All of these things are extremely expensive, but they're a kind of mechanical element in it that your most advanced collectors are looking for. Now, this next group, the only watch, is one of the most interesting ones, I think, in watch collection. Every year they have this, it's a charity event called The Only Watch, and all the watchmakers they make one single watch that's unlike anything else that they have, and they enter it into the Only Watch auction, really, and all the money is raised for charity from that auction. Now, what this does is that it gives the watchmakers sort of an opportunity to try something that they're not worried at all about sales because there's only one of them, but they want to make it interesting, and it's sort of a little status symbol to get the most money for your watch at one of these auctions. I think a couple of years ago, F.P. Journe's watch sold for over $1 million, and it was like, that's a nice one to have. Now, I don't know exact number, 50, 60 or so watch companies are in this, and they make these unique watches. Some of them simply are a regular watch with a different paint job. Other ones are fairly unique. The first one is by Anderson Geneve, called Remontoir. And on the top of the watch up here, there's it looks like an enamel rendering of Geneva with a boat and the big fountain blowing off to the side, and there's no watch information there at all. All of the time is on the side of the watch, and so it's a pretty fat watch, so you can read it. And so when you read it from here for the time. Kerry Voutier-Lanen's watch, one of them that he has, this I think is from last year, from 2019, is a TP1 pocket watch. And it was, I don't know if Voutier-Lanen has any other pocket watches that he makes, but this one is certainly an interesting one. And it's the coloring and the design and everything else is very playful, but it has certain characteristics that are very Voutier-Lanen, like on the hour hand, there's that great big moon at the end, and the colors are more festive. Now, finally, this Patek Philippe Grandmaster chime is the interesting thing about this. It has things on both sides. And what it is, it's in stainless steel. Now, I believe that for the only watch, they said, well, if we made one in stainless steel, it's the only one in stainless steel we're going to make. The other ones can be in gold or something else, and that doesn't count because they're not the only watch. So I believe this is the one that they had for that. And I'm sure that, something like this would bring a fortune or a small fortune. And like I said, it all goes to charity. So it's really a great thing to have. Now, of course, if you own one of these watches, you got one of the most unique watches anywhere. There's nothing like it. Okay, now the final one is a Perpetual Calendar. And the last time, and when we talked about intermediate, we talked about annual calendars. And here we have Perpetual Calendars. These calendars, once you get them set up, they're good for something like 2,000 years or something like that. And here are three different ones. Again, they're relatively expensive. Girard-Perregaux Laredo Perpetual Calendar is $34,500. Now that's a lot less than some of the other ones we looked at, but still it's a hefty amount. One of my favorite is the H. Moser et Company Endeavor Perpetual Calendar Purity. This one I just love. What H. Moser did for the Perpetual Calendar, there's a little nub of a hand right in the middle there, and that's the month. And so what they did they simply have it go from 12 to 1 and so forth for the different months. And so if it's like, this would be, the reading now would be 12/12, which would be December 12th. Over to the left is the power reserve indicator, and then there's small seconds down at 6 o'clock. Finally, there's a Jaja-LeCoultre Master Ultra Thin Perpetual Calendar. This one is 30,500. And it has, the thing I like about this one, about the Jaja-LeCoultre, very, very clear in terms, you can see the at 9 o'clock you have a dial for the day of the week. At over at 3 o'clock you have a hand date for the days of the month, and then down at 6 o'clock is for the names of the month. And then to the left of that, you have the year. Okay, this one is set, for example, to 2020. Then up on top, you have a moon phase. You get it's a lot of watch in that. And again, this one's an ultra thin one too. It's the ultra thin perpetual calendar. Okay, now, the thing about this, about the watches and the kind of watch elements that your advanced watch collector wants, these are extremely expensive, very, very expensive. And so one of the things I think that, in fact, a lot of the watches I talked about, when we talked about beginners, we talked about intermediate, and now advanced. What I want to do next time, I'm going to go and try to find the most affordable watches for each one of these kinds of things that I think that are important for watch collectors. And so we'll do that next time and see if we can find something a little more reasonable. In the meantime, love to hear your comments. I know there are a lot that were left out, and people can say, well, what about this and what about that? Well, that's true, but there's just too many of them. So, but if there are ones that you think, hey, this would be a good one to include, let me know, okay? And as always, this is an invitation to subscribe if you like. Until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Society, the art and science of watch collection.